The mountain shifted before Daniel Mercer heard it. Not a roar. Not yet. Just a low, almost intimate sound, like packed snow adjusting its weight, like something alive settling in its sleep. Daniel froze mid-step, breath held, eyes locked on the slope rising behind his house. The wall stood firm. 4 feet of reinforced timber and stone, sunk deep into frozen earth, cutting across the lower face of the mountain at a precise angle. Snow pressed against it in dense, layered bands. Pressure. Stored energy. Daniel exhaled slowly. Then his phone vibrated. He didn't need to look to know who it was. The wind snapped across Pine Ridge Estates, carrying ice crystals that stung his cheeks. Below him, the neighborhood sat pristine and quiet, heated driveways, uniform fencing, curated perfection carved into wilderness. The kind of place where danger was supposed to be theoretical. The phone vibrated again. Daniel ignored it and knelt, gloved hands brushing snow from one of the wall's anchor plates. Solid. Exactly as designed. He'd run the load calculations a dozen times before building it. The county had signed off. The mountain didn't care about aesthetics, only physics. The phone stopped buzzing. A voicemail notification appeared. He straightened and looked downhill, his gaze landing on the wide, curved driveway of the largest house on the cul-de-sac. Floor-to-ceiling glass revealed a climate-controlled garage beyond, lights glowing like a museum exhibit. Marjorie Halloway's cars sat inside, polished and immaculate. 6 of them. European imports. All angled just so. Daniel turned and walked back inside. Warmth rushed over him, the scent of coffee lingering in the air. Claire stood at the kitchen island, tablet in hand, jaw set tight in a way Daniel had learned meant bad news already confirmed. That was them again, she said. Daniel pulled off his gloves. HOA? Final notice, Claire replied. They're threatening daily fines now. Legal action. He opened the voicemail and let it play on speaker. Daniel, Marjorie's voice chimed, smooth and controlled, this structure is in direct violation of Pine Ridge Estate's aesthetic compliance standards. You have until Friday to remove it entirely. This is non-negotiable. Friday. Daniel looked out the window again. Snow drifted steadily now, light but constant, layering itself without urgency. The mountain was patient. She knows why it's there, Claire said. They all do. They know it's ugly, Daniel replied. That's not what I mean. Daniel didn't answer. He poured himself coffee he didn't want and leaned against the counter. 3 years ago, a smaller slide had taken out the Klein's detached garage 2 houses down. No injuries. Insurance fight. Settlement. Everyone moved on. Everyone except Daniel. He'd spent 15 years as a structural engineer before burnout and money allowed him to stop. He didn't stop thinking, though. Not when the mountain loomed this close. Not when snowpack patterns changed. Not when risk was dismissed because it interfered with appearances. That night, the wind rose. Claire slept lightly, shifting whenever the house creaked. Daniel lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening. Snow tapped the windows. A dull thud echoed once from somewhere above, then silence. At 2:37 a.m., he got out of bed and checked the outdoor cameras. The wall held. At 6:14 a.m., another message came through. Final notice. Failure to comply will result in immediate penalties. Daniel stared at the screen for a long moment. Then he typed a single reply. Understood. By noon, the excavator arrived. The HOA compliance officer stood at the edge of Daniel's driveway, clipboard clutched to his chest like a shield. He didn't meet Daniel's eyes. A few neighbors watched from behind curtains. Marjorie arrived last. She wore a white winter coat that looked untouched by weather, sunglasses oversized, expression tight with satisfaction. She stopped a safe distance away, heels planted firmly on heated concrete. Make sure it's all removed, she called. No partial compliance. Daniel nodded once. He climbed into the excavator and began dismantling the wall piece by piece. Each timber came free with effort, releasing packed snow behind it, dense, gray-white, compressed into dangerous layers. The mountain whispered. Daniel worked slowly. Carefully. The compliance officer shifted nervously. When the final support beam came loose, Daniel shut off the engine. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the slope exhaled. Snow began to move, not fast, not violent. At first, it slid downward in a thick, rolling mass, accelerating as gravity took over, breaking into waves of white and ice. "Get back," someone shouted. Daniel was already stepping away. The avalanche surged past where the wall had been, spilling across the open ground, flowing exactly where his calculations had predicted. Straight downhill. Toward Marjorie's driveway. The sound was enormous now, deep, roaring, unstoppable. Snow slammed into the heated concrete, overwhelming it instantly. Ice shattered glass. Metal screamed. By the time the mountain fell silent again, Marjorie's garage was gone beneath a frozen tide. Daniel stood still, heart pounding, breath fogging the air. Behind him, the compliance officer dropped his clipboard. In the distance, Marjorie screamed. The mountain, finally relieved of its burden, settled into quiet. And Daniel knew this was only the beginning. The county called it a controlled incident. Daniel heard the phrase 3 times before noon, each repetition landing flatter than the last. Controlled implied intention. Order. Something tidy enough to file away and forget. But nothing about the morning after felt controlled. Snowbanks taller than SUVs lined the street. Heavy machinery groaned as crews worked to clear Marjorie Holloway's driveway. What had been a glass-fronted show garage now looked like a collapsed lung, steel beams bent inward, windows shattered, white packed into every crevice. Daniel watched from his porch, coffee untouched in his hand. Marjorie stood near the edge of the chaos, wrapped in a borrowed parka, hair unbrushed, phone pressed to her ear. She was shouting. Not at anyone in particular, at the universe, maybe. At the idea that something had slipped beyond her control. A sheriff's deputy approached Daniel an hour later. "Mr. Mercer," he said, polite but guarded. "We're just gathering statements." "Of course." "You removed the structure voluntarily?" "Yes." "Under written order from the HOA." The deputy nodded, scribbling. "No injuries." That's the important part. Daniel didn't correct him. Injuries weren't the point. By afternoon, the news vans arrived. Local HOA dispute ends in avalanche damage, the Chiron read. Daniel declined interviews. Marjorie didn't. She stood in front of the cameras, voice trembling, eyes wet. "This could have been prevented," she said. "We trusted our neighbors to act responsibly." That night, an email hit Daniel's inbox. Notice of intent to sue, gross negligence. Claire read it over his shoulder. "They're going after you." "I know. They'll drain us." Daniel closed the laptop. "Only if they're clean." She looked at him. "What does that mean?" "It means she didn't want the wall gone because it was ugly," Daniel said quietly. "She wanted it gone because it worked." He slept little. The mountain was quiet now, too quiet. When morning came, Daniel started digging. He began with insurance filings. HOA master policy. Riders. Exclusions. Buried language that most people never read. On page 47, a clause caught his eye. Losses resulting from homeowner-installed mitigation structures deemed non-compliant with community standards may be excluded from coverage. Daniel frowned. That afternoon, another email arrived. No name. No signature. Check prior claims. Same pattern. He pulled county records. Avalanche reports. Property damage filings. Over 10 years, there were 3 other rare slides. Always after disputes. Always affecting homeowners who had challenged HOA decisions, solar panels, drainage modifications, reinforced fencing. In every case, insurance coverage had been denied. Properties sold within months. Bought by LLCs, quiet ones. Daniel followed the trail. 2 of the LLCs traced back to the same registered agent. That agent linked to a real estate trust in Denver. The trust listed a single trustee. Marjorie Holloway's brother. Daniel sat back, pulse steady but heavy. This wasn't about snow. It was about leverage. That evening, Claire found him surrounded by papers, diagrams, and an open laptop. "Dan," she said gently, "you're scaring me." "She's been engineering losses," he replied. "Using the mountain. Pushing people out. Buying cheap." Claire swallowed. That's insane." "No," Daniel said. "It's elegant." He filed a formal request with the HOA for internal communications related to snow mitigation, safety structures, and insurance coordination. State law required compliance. The response was delayed. Then partially redacted. Then incomplete. Daniel pushed back. Calm. Precise. He cited statutes. Deadlines. 3 days later, a zip file arrived. He opened it at midnight. Hundreds of emails. Most mundane. Complaints about noise. Landscaping disputes. Then he found a thread marked private, board only. Marjorie's name appeared again and again. "If we allow one exception, we lose control. The mountain is leverage. Don't forget that. Insurance will handle it, as long as we stay consistent." Daniel felt a chill that had nothing to do with winter. He copied everything. Backed it up twice. Then he waited. The HOA scheduled an emergency meeting, closed session, members only. Daniel requested to attend. They denied him. So he planned something else. The Pine Ridge Estates Winter Gala was a week away. Annual. Mandatory smiles. Media friendly. Every board member present. Sponsors. Donors. Cameras. Claire watched him dress the night of the event, suit pressed, expression calm. "You're going to burn it down," she said. "Just shining a light," Daniel replied. Outside, the mountain loomed, newly scarred where the slide had released. County crews had begun installing temporary barriers, real ones this time. As Daniel drove toward the lodge, his phone buzzed. Another anonymous message. "She's not the top. Just the face." Daniel didn't reply. He parked, stepped out into the cold, and looked once more at the slope. The mountain was quiet. But he knew better now. Pressure never disappeared. It only waited. The lodge smelled like pine, expensive perfume, and heat pushed too hard against winter. Daniel stepped inside Pine Ridge's great hall and let the noise wash over him, laughter echoing off timber beams, glasses clinking, a string quartet tucked near the fireplace pretending this was culture and not theater. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the mountain outside, its dark spine cutting into the night like a held breath. Everyone was here. Homeowners in tailored coats. County officials nursing drinks. Local reporters pretending not to take notes. And at the center of it all, Marjorie Holloway, radiant, composed, already recovered. Her hair was perfect again. Her smile steady. If not for the bruised skin at her temple, you'd never know she'd lost millions of dollars in steel and glass beneath 12 feet of snow. Daniel felt the weight of the flash drive in his pocket. "Daniel!" Marjorie called, spotting him across the room. She crossed the floor with practiced grace. "I'm surprised you showed up." "Community event," he replied. "Wouldn't miss it." Her smile tightened. "We'll be discussing your situation privately." "I'm sure," Daniel said. She leaned closer, voice low. "You think you're clever. But accidents happen. Mountains shift. Juries understand that." Daniel met her eyes. For the first time, he saw something flicker there, uncertainty, quickly masked. The lights dimmed. The HOA vice president took the stage, tapping the microphone. Thank you all for coming. Tonight is about unity. About trust. Daniel waited. Marjorie followed him onto the stage a moment later, applause rippling politely through the crowd. She raised a hand, voice smooth and warm. We've all been shaken by recent events, she began. But Pine Ridge has always faced challenges together. Daniel stood. The sound of his chair scraping the floor cut through the room. A hush followed him as he walked toward the stage, steps unhurried, posture relaxed. He didn't look angry. That unsettled people more than shouting ever could. Is unity what you call it, Daniel said, voice carrying easily, when you weaponize a mountain? A murmur spread. Cameras lifted. Marjorie's smile froze. Excuse me? Daniel turned to the crowd. I requested HOA records. I received emails. Internal communications. Insurance coordination. He reached the podium before anyone stopped him. 3 avalanches in 10 years, he continued. All after disputes. All resulting in denied claims. Forced sales. Properties bought by shell companies tied to the same family. Marjorie shook her head, laughing lightly. This is absurd. He's spiraling. Daniel plugged in the flash drive. The screens behind them flickered to life. Emails filled the display. Dates. Names. Highlighted phrases. The mountain is leverage. Consistency ensures insurance denial. We can't allow mitigation that disrupts pressure. The room erupted. What the hell is that? Someone shouted. That's fake. Marjorie snapped, stepping toward the screen. This is stolen. It's authenticated, Daniel said calmly. Metadata intact. Servers trace back to HOA accounts. A reporter pushed forward. Mrs. Holloway, care to respond? Marjorie's composure cracked. You don't understand what it takes to maintain order, she said sharply. People like him build whatever they want. If we let one exception. She stopped herself too late. The silence was absolute. Then a sound came from outside. A deep, rolling crack. The glass wall behind the stage vibrated as everyone turned. High on the mountain, beneath the floodlights, a fresh fracture line split the snowpack like a wound reopening. Someone screamed. Emergency lights snapped on. Staff shouted evacuation orders. The quartet abandoned their instruments. Daniel watched the slope, heart pounding not with fear, but recognition. The pressure point had shifted. Not enough to release fully. But enough to remind everyone what had always been there. Marjorie stumbled back, face drained of color. No, this isn't. The snow settled. The slide stopped short, contained by newly installed county barriers. A deputy stepped onto the stage. Marjorie Holloway, he said evenly, we need to speak with you. She laughed, hysterical. This is ridiculous. You can't arrest me because of snow. We're not, the deputy replied. We're arresting you for fraud, conspiracy, and coercion. Hands closed around her wrists. As she was led away, Marjorie twisted toward Daniel, eyes wild. You think this ends with me, she hissed. You have no idea who you just embarrassed. Daniel didn't answer. Outside, snow began to fall again, soft, innocent, hiding weight beneath beauty. The mountain loomed in the dark. And for the first time, the crowd understood what Daniel always had. Nature wasn't the threat. Control was. By spring, the mountain looked calm again. Not safe, Daniel knew better than to confuse the two, but managed. Steel reinforced snow fences cut across its lower face now, engineered by state geologists instead of HOA committees. Controlled release channels scarred the slope in clean, deliberate lines. Where secrecy had once ruled, warning signs stood openly. Pine Ridge Estates changed its tone. The HOA dissolved under state investigation within 3 weeks of Marjorie Holloway's arrest. Board members resigned quietly. Some claimed ignorance. Some didn't speak at all. Lawsuits followed: insurance fraud, coercive property acquisition, negligence. The phrase "the mountain is leverage" became a headline, then a cautionary meme, then a case study. Marjorie made bail. Her car collection was a total loss. The garage was condemned. Insurance refused payout, not this time. Investigators froze several accounts tied to the Denver trust. Her brother disappeared from public records like a man stepping backward into fog. Daniel testified once. Just once. He kept his answers technical. Measured. Boring enough to be unimpeachable. He didn't gloat. He didn't editorialize. The truth, delivered calmly, was far more damaging. Claire noticed the change first. "You're sleeping," she said one morning, surprised. "Pressure's off," Daniel replied. That wasn't entirely true, but some of it was. Neighbors stopped avoiding him. Some apologized. Others brought food. A few admitted they'd known something was wrong but hadn't wanted to be the first to say it out loud. Normal life returned in pieces. Children played in the street again. Driveways filled. Snow fell and melted without incident. The mountain stayed quiet but not forgotten. On a clear afternoon, Daniel stood beside the new barrier with a county engineer, reviewing final reports. "Your original design was solid," the engineer admitted. "If they'd listened." "They didn't want safety," Daniel said. "They wanted control." The engineer nodded. "You'd be surprised how often those get confused." That evening, Daniel and Claire sat on the porch as the sun dipped behind the ridge, turning the snowcaps gold. "Do you regret it?" Claire asked. "Taking the wall down?" "Everything that came after." Daniel thought for a long moment. "No. I regret that it took damage for people to see the pattern." Claire leaned into him. "Patterns are invisible until they repeat." A week later, a letter arrived. No return address. Inside was a single photograph. Another mountain. Different state. Different neighborhood, but familiar in all the wrong ways. Identical houses. Identical slope. A half-built snow wall in the foreground. Scrawled on the back, in neat block letters. This was never local. Daniel didn't show Claire right away. He stood at the window, the photo in his hand, the real mountain outside framed by dusk. Safe for now. Managed. Watched. He opened his laptop and began searching. HOA boards. Insurance exclusions. Shell LLC's patterns. Somewhere out there, another wall was being labeled non-compliant. Another risk was being ignored on purpose. Another mountain was being used as leverage. Daniel closed the blinds. He wasn't looking for a fight. But if pressure was building again, he knew exactly how to read the signs. And this time, he wouldn't wait for the snow to move first.